So at some point, you might realize that you're not equipped to offer the help to this person that they really need. They might need professional help. So how do you go about helping them get professional help? The first thing is, I would argue that really everyone in this situation could use counseling, could use a good therapist, but maybe not everyone needs that right away. Age does matter. There is a time where maybe people aren't ready to deal with the dysfunction, to deal with their brokenness. And so we need to be sensitive to that. But even in those situations, for example, if you think of a teenager who's really struggling, but doesn't really want to talk about their parents' divorce, what they've been through, they still need tools, they need tactics that they can use to just cope, to just survive and kind of get through the messiness, the dysfunction at home. And in those situations, a counselor can help them learn those skills, learn those tools that they can use. But therapy obviously becomes much more urgent the more serious the symptoms are. So if you're noticing symptoms like depression, anxiety, things that are really sticking with them for maybe days and weeks at a time, then that's when they need professional help. So basically, the more serious the symptom, the more urgent it is that they get professional help. For example, if they're cutting, if they're suicidal, or like I mentioned, depression and anxiety. But again, I think anyone and everyone who goes through their parents' divorce, comes from a dysfunctional family, can benefit from counseling. A few barriers you might face when it comes to suggesting professional help. One, there's shame associated with therapy. I think as a culture, we're shifting there where it's becoming more normal to go to therapy, but there's still shame associated with it. I remember thinking only really messed up people go to therapy. And so it's important for them to know that even if they don't have a serious psychiatric issue, they can still benefit from counseling. What I like to say is, if you're struggling in any way, or if you just want to be better, therapy can be helpful for you. And so encourage them to consider therapy. And therapy's effectiveness, from what I've observed, is often diminished the longer you wait and the deeper the issue gets. So the deeper you get in the hole, the harder it can be to actually come out of it. So the sooner you go, the better. That's true for individuals. That's especially true in marriages as well. And so there's nothing wrong for wanting to be better. There's nothing wrong if you're struggling and wanting help. There's nothing wrong with seeking out help from a professional who's really trained to help you. Another huge barrier is finding a good counselor. This is such a big problem, and perhaps you can help them in that search. A few characteristics to look for in a counselor, and a good counselor. Find someone who understands the human person. That typically means they have a Christian worldview, but a skilled therapist, a competent therapist, can work with someone who has a different worldview than them. But typically, we've seen there's struggles there. There's just a misalignment of morality and core beliefs. Find someone who's competent. Again, just because they're Christian does not mean that they're actually a good, skilled therapist. And so you want to find someone who's competent. Imagine that you needed heart surgery. Would you want to go to the best surgeon in town, or just to a surgeon who was Christian? And so in the same way, we need to find someone who's competent. But how do you assess their competence? It can be a difficult thing to do. First, you can look at their credentials, their training. That can be helpful, but that's often incomplete. You might not really know what you're looking for in that case. You could also find reviews. You can find feedback from clients of theirs. Now, if you ask them for feedback, which is a reasonable thing to do, they're probably going to send you the feedback that they've gotten that's really positive, that's really good. But if there's a lot of that, just a ton of really good feedback, it's likely an indication that they're very effective, they're good, they're competent at what they do. You also can ask friends of yours. You can ask people in your network to see if there's someone that they know that they would recommend for therapy. Find someone who understands that divorce and dysfunction within the family can be traumatic, can be really difficult to endure. Sadly, some therapists believe that it's not that big of a deal, probably because they haven't seen the research. They're just not equipped to offer the help that that person needs. You really want to find someone who doesn't sugarcoat, who doesn't gaslight, who doesn't make light of the situation of the divorce. And so make sure you find someone who really can take it seriously, and make sure to vet them for that as well, by just asking questions about what they think about divorce in general and how it affects a person. Find someone who clicks with you. This is really important. The effectiveness of therapy often depends on your relationship with the therapist. So if you're not really getting along with the therapist well, it's okay to not continue and to find a different therapist. Find someone nearby. So the way licensing typically works, at least in the United States, is per state. So you need to find a counselor who's licensed in your state. And so find someone nearby. In-person therapy, in my opinion, is best, but virtual therapy can be effective in certain situations as well. By the way, don't be afraid to encourage them to do the free consultation, to have a conversation with the therapist and just see how it goes. If they don't want to continue, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. They're not committing to working with that therapist. And even if they go to a few sessions and they don't really like the therapist or they don't click with them, then they can stop. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in doing that. And if you want more information on how counseling works and how to choose a counselor, we have a podcast episode on this topic with a therapist. You can go to restoredministry.com/12. It's episode 12 of our podcast. And in that episode, again, we just talk through how to choose a counselor that's right for you. Finally, another huge barrier, aside from choosing a counselor and the shame associated with it, is the cost. It can be very expensive. It isn't cheap, even though it can be extremely helpful. There's actually a lot of different ways to pay for counseling. Top two ideas that I want to offer to you. One, you can ask for a reduced rate. Some counselors, depending on the counselor, work on a sliding scale, meaning they can offer a reduced rate in certain situations. So you can ask for that. Can't hurt to ask if they're willing to work with you there. Another tactic that you can use is getting on a payment plan. So perhaps you can only afford $200 a month, but the bill for your counseling will be $400 a month. You can enter an agreement with the counselor to pay $200 a month until the balance for your therapy is paid off. It depends on the counselor. Some are willing to do that. Some might not be, but it can't hurt to ask. And so if you or the person you're trying to help want more information on this topic of how to pay for counseling, again, we have a podcast episode on this topic as well. That's episode 40. You can find that at restoredministry.com/40.